What have you done?
We are honored to have our brother here with us today, and she will get the garage.
Thank you so much, Jason. Thanks, everybody. So, we began Parashat Kitisa, and I recognize it was a while ago. There's been much excitement since then, but we began Parashat Kitisa with these words. V'yedaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, God says to Moses, saying, Kitisa, when you take an accounting, at Rosh Bnei Israel Kudehem, of the heads of the children of Israel, according to their enrollment, or their battalion, something like that, v'natnu ish kofer nafsho laHashem b'fkodotam. Each person, each man should give a ransom of his soul, kofer nafsho, to God, when you enumerate them, when you enroll them. So that there shouldn't be any kind of plague when you do this accounting. Okay, pretty interesting, right? It's a very odd beginning to this parsha, saying, number one, to take a census, and number two, to do it with this in this particular manner, with each person giving a half shekel, so that there should be no plague. So there are a lot of different directions that we could investigate as we think about these verses. Firstly, we could say, why is there this taking of a census at all, as the people are beginning their sojourn in the wilderness? In fact, there's a census at the beginning of the wilderness years and another one at the end of the wilderness years. But why is this done? And why are the results recorded? And how is this relevant or interesting to us now, several thousand years later? So that could be question number one. Question number two, we could look, as I was discussing with my friend Reb Turner earlier this week, why are these three different verbs for counting or accounting used in these few verses that are discussing the enumeration? Pakad, kofer, which is the same as Kippur, like Yom Kippurim, and naso, the kitisa, the verb to lift up, as well as the word for shekel itself, which means awaiting or weighing. What do these different roots imply? Why are they woven together as they are? It's another way we could investigate it. We could also talk about the fact that it's only the men who are counted here. It's only the men aged 20 and up. It's actually only the non-priests. So we could talk about all the ways that society is sliced and diced into different age groups, gender groups, roles and functions, and all the questions that gives rise to. And we could also ask the question of why might there be a plague attached to counting the people. And in fact, I wrote a whole other Devar Torah about not counting people and plagues, and if you're interested in that, I'm happy to share that with you too. But that's not what we're going to talk about right now. What I want to talk about right now is this image of the shekel, the chetzi shekel, the half shekel, this coin that the people are told to bring as part of their counting. So I want to ask you first and foremost, what does this image imply to you? Why? What is the resonance here? Why are these men told to bring this coin, this half shekel? This is a genuine open question, not rhetorical. We'll call on the rabbi in a second. Anybody else got something?
For maintenance of the...
Maintenance. Okay, here speaks a former shul president. There is a very, very good practical reason. You're counting these people. Bring some money. It's helpful. Okay, so good. Actually, this money goes towards the upkeep of the public goods. Okay.
Well, first of all, the people who are counted, the men over the age of 20, are potentially warriors.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
And warrior, you actually do your thing, and people get killed. And therefore, you don't want to come in completely happy, and the half shekel refers to your, less than happiness.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's a beautiful teaching. I've never heard that explained that way before. Great. So there's a cost. There's a cost to war, a human cost, and this half shekel reminds us of the terrible human costs of war. Thank you. Great. Anything else? Yeah.
They're investing in their community.
They're investing in their community. Okay. Right. So everyone's contributing something. Mm-hmm. Susan?
And everyone's contributing the same amount. This comes up as
yeah, exactly. The rich shouldn't give more. It says it in the next verse. The rich should give no more than this. The poor should give no less than this. It's an equalizer. Beautiful. Yeah.
There's also a half shekel.
Yeah, say more.
That it's not a full shekel.
Beautiful. So there's something about it being a half that implies we're only part of the whole. We're not ever really complete on our own. We're a contributing part, and it's little enough that perhaps everyone could afford to give it, but it's great enough that, especially taken en masse, it's really worth something. Just like we are taken en masse, but we're really worth something, both individually and en masse.
Well, I was thinking on a personal level that it reminds me of getting a car license. You know, everybody gets the same license. Everybody's got. If you have a certain kind of vehicle, you pay that amount. But even an earlier reference for me is an ID card, like a draft card. Everybody got at a certain point in American history, in my childhood, everybody got a draft card, and we were all supposed to be equal.
Right. So there's something equalizing about this half shekel. Thank you. These are all really, really good thoughts, good ideas. We're talking about the beginning of this week's Torah portion, where the people are told to eat there's an accounting of people, and each of the people who's counted is told to bring a half shekel, a coin, a certain coin. So I also want to dive in to this image of the coin itself, of the iconography and the implications of using a coin to count people. So something that we have in common with the world of the rabbis, and it's not actually universal in human society by any means, is that we, like they, have money. We have physical money. That's not the case in every society. In some societies, people just exchange goods. I want some of your apples. Here, let me give you some of my milk from my cow, or whatever it may be. And in fact, back in the day, long before I became a rabbi, way back in the day, my first degree is actually in history. I studied history at Cambridge University, and one of the things that I found things I remember from that time was actually about when the money economy was introduced in medieval Europe. It actually gave rise to a huge amount of anxiety, because one of the things about money is it's worth the same whoever's using it, right? My $10 bill can buy exactly the same as what your $10 bill can, which is not the case in a gift exchange economy, where the status of the person who's giving the gift directly impacts how valuable that gift is. So if it's a high status individual, this lamb or goat or whatever that they're giving is worth a lot more than the lamb or goat of a poor person, even if it's functionally the same. So in fact, when money economy began to be used, people were worried about this really breaking up the fabric of society, that this would actually give a lot more power to poorer people, interestingly enough. So we might think of money as being something that shows us our differences, how much or how little we have, but in a certain way, money itself is actually an equalizer, like we're talking about with this image of you shouldn't give more, you shouldn't give less, you should give exactly this amount. Another thing about coins or about money is that they're actually powerful symbols. When you think about it, they're powerful symbols in a number of ways. So those of you who are familiar with the Torah deck of cards, which actually our modern playing deck is also based on, will remember that the pentacles or coins actually represent the entire material realm. They represent physicality itself, or we might say in Kabbalistic terms, Olam Ha'asiyah, the world of making and doing, the entrenched embodied realm. We can also think of the phrase, two sides of the same coin, right? What does two sides of the same coin mean?
Different meanings.
Well, there are different meanings. It's a graspable image of how something can apparently have very different facets, like heads or tails, and yet at the same time, and those facets can have different meanings and imply different things, but at the same time, they're part of a greater unity that they're inseparable parts of, right? So the coin can represent sameness and difference at the same time, which is pretty interesting. Coins are also a representation of authority and of order, right? Not just because they regulate value, like we were saying, but actually because they are implicitly backed up by some sort of government or banking system which gives them their value, especially now when our money economy is, we're not actually exchanging pieces of gold. That money that we exchange is fundamentally symbolic. It's not even pieces of metal. Now it's just pieces of colored paper. And yet we believe that they have value because they're backed up by a government and a treasury that prints them, that regulates them, that it's illegal to replicate them, and so forth. And the government will prevent you from replicating them. So it's valuable because it has this image of it, and because of our respect and recognition of what that image represents. Thanks. And it's interesting to note that now, as in ancient times, the money very often has on it the image of the government, right? It has the image of the rulership, whether that's a symbolic image like an eagle, or in the case of the state of Israel, the menorah and the olive branches, or actually the head of the ruler, right? An image of the ruler, past or present. I haven't yet been back to the UK since the death of Queen Elizabeth, but very soon I'm sure we'll be seeing coins with the head of the new monarch on them, and this will be a massive shock because for our entire lifetimes we've seen the image of actually a much younger queen stamped onto all the coins. So, in all of these ways, the money actively represents and is an extension of the authority of the government. Okay? Pretty interesting. So, the rabbis are also interested in this image of the coin, which, like with our coins, were created in some kind of a stamp or press, some kind of a mold. And it's an early example of mass production. And the rabbis are very interested in how this image of mass production sits uncomfortably with the image of human beings, who are in a sense mass-produced, and in a sense are an extension of the authority of the creator, but in some ways, is completely the opposite of the idea of something which has no inherent value and is created one like the other. And there's in fact a very beautiful Mishnah, which is given in Tractate Sanhedrin. If Jack is nodding, I'm sure you know this Mishnah, where he gives this incredibly beautiful and striking image. I love this Mishnah. It says, when a person, a flesh and blood ruler, mints a coin, each coin from that mold is identical. But not so the supreme ruler, the Holy One of Blessing. For each human is minted from the mold of Adam Harishon, the primordial human, and yet no two are alike. We're coins printed from the mint of the Holy One of Blessing, and no two of us are alike. So such a beautiful, beautiful image. We are, in a sense, little heads on coins, an extension of the presence and authority of the one that creates us, whether that's our immediate parents or the ultimate creator, running around enacting our agency on the world. And in a sense, it's human power far more than any money, whether it's actual money or symbolic money. Our labor, our skill, our attention is really by far the greatest currency, by far the most valuable thing that powers every society. And unlike the currency, which is uniform, as we've been saying, like your $10 is worth exactly the same amount as my $10, we human beings are so valuable for the opposite reason, that no two of us is alike. That each of us is completely unique. We're structurally identical, but we're functionally completely unique. As can only be, is only brought home to us in the most beautiful way when we come to shul together and we hear people come up for an aliyah in honor of someone who they've loved and lost, and they speak about that individual, and we see what a unique and precious life that life was, completely unlike any other life that has ever been or ever will be. There's an incredibly beautiful quote I love from the great American dancer and choreographer Martha Graham, who says, "There is only one of you in all time. This expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost." Right? I'm going to say it again, it's so great. There is only one of you in all time. This expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium and will be lost. So, our uniqueness is part of what makes us so unbelievably precious. And our uniqueness is what's more an expression of the utter creativity and the ongoing iteration of this extraordinary, inscrutable complexity of our divine progenitor, the Holy One of Blessing, in whose image our most sacred text tells us repeatedly and right at the beginning, we are made, right? As it says in the beginning of chapter 4 of Genesis, Zeh Sefer Toldot Adam, Vayom bara Elokim Adam bidmut Elokim asa oto. This is the record of the human line. When God created humankind, it was made in the likeness of God. Male and female were they created. And when they were created, God blessed them and called them humankind. So when I think of the Israelites being asked to bring this half shekel, this half measure, I can't help but also think of that other midrash the rabbis bring about the creation of human beings, male and female, where they say that actually the original human being was created male and female. Zachar unekeva bara otam, male and female, they were created, like the Torah says. Which is to say, we were originally, as the rabbis say, androgynous. We were bigendered, and we have been split down the middle, so that each of us, printed from this divine mint, is in fact only half the coin. And we spend our lives looking, quite literally, for that other half to bring us back into our original unity. So like the coins minted by a flesh and blood ruler, we are the miniature representations of something much bigger, and like this half coin, it's to remind us that there's something else on the flip side, something that we actually can't quite see, but that is an intimate and inseparable part of us. So I could leave this little Torah right there, but I think it would be wrong not to bring in that other great text that we read this week, which is to say, the Book of Esther. Now, I'm sure none of you missed that the Book of Esther, while being a great story, also has quite a lot of disturbing stuff about money and the value of human life, and in fact, large amounts of money being transferred to and from the royal treasury in exchange for human populations, let's just say. So, what can we say about this? And what does Kitisa really trying to imply in asking to give money in representation of the human being? Is it to say that they're surrendering their humanity to become part of a corporate identity, something not human? Is it actually to say, like the golden calf, how ridiculous it is to try to condense something so ineffable and unutterable into a piece of metal, as the Israelites tried to do with the representation of God? Or is it to point out that we, like in the Book of Esther, actually are inseparable in a certain way from the values that society puts on us? I skipped a whole page. So, I think I'll finish with another midrash. Because the rabbis are also disturbed by this idea of human life being represented by money. And the rabbis say that when Moses received the Torah from God, he was taken aback. He was shocked and unable to reconcile with three things. And these three things are all places in Scripture where human beings are told to give money in ransom for their soul. So in Bamidbar Rabbah, Moses actually says to God, the rabbis have Moses say to God, who can give a ransom for their soul? How can the human soul be evaluated according to money? And he quotes various verses from Job and from Psalms to back up his point. What does God reply? God says, I'm not asking for what it's valued lefi kochi, in the terms of my evaluation of it. I'm not asking you to ransom it for what it's actually worth. I'm asking you to value it lefi kocham, I'm asking you to make a contribution that's in your power to make. I'm asking you to put in like the half, not the whole shekel. God has implicitly put in the other half shekel. I'm asking you to contribute that piece which is yours to contribute. And of course that half shekel is an absurd contribution. And it's a half to show that it's only ever going to be a part of what's really needed. But God says, I want to see that it's worth something to you. I want to see that your soul is worth something to you. I want to see you put your stake in this game of human existence. Right? So we might like to think we're very far from the ancient world of money being moved to and from royal treasuries in the balance of human life, but my friends, we are not far from that world. We are living in that world where powers far beyond the powers of governments continue to directly buy governments in order to be able to destroy and pollute human lives, even to the point of our own ecosystem, the fabric of our existence on this planet being threatened. When Esther is asked for the second time at that banquet, what her request is and what her entreaty, she says, rather oddly, she says, if your majesty will do me the favour, and if it pleases the king, let my life be granted me as my wish, and my people as my request. She says, ki nimkarnu ani v'ami, for we have been sold, my people and I, to be destroyed, massacred, and exterminated. Had we only been sold as bondmen and bondwomen, I would have kept silent. For the adversary is not worthy of the king's trouble. That's what Esther says. Which is quite a strange statement, saying, if we only were going to be sold into slavery, I would have kept quiet. I wouldn't want to make a fuss. But I think maybe there's some truth to that. For this, at the point where it's only poverty and suffering that we're struggling against, we may put up with it. But at the point when we see that really what we're facing is annihilation, that this may not be actually a livable planet for our descendants, this perhaps will actually cause us to rise up, to say, we may only be a half shekel, we may never be complete in and of ourselves, but we are part of your royal treasury, and we are made in your divine image, and we know that our lives are inestimably valuable. So I pray and I ask that on this Parshat Parah, Shabbat Parah, when we read of purification, and Shabbat Kitisa, when we read of the mistake of trying to condense what cannot ever be valued into a lump of metal, we can return in our hearts to what truly matters, which is the living and abiding spirit, which is held by each one of us. And we can become, together, Pikudei Hashem, the legions that fight for the value of human life and for a world that our descendants will be able not just to survive, but to thrive in. That's my prayer. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.